It is cheap power supply day. So I've got a million things that use 12 volts, or in a lot of cases radios, they actually run at 13.8 volts. But I always seem to have piles of accessories that will run perfectly fine at 12 volts. And actually that's what they specify is 12 volts. They don't actually call for 13.8. And I've got big power supplies. I've got 50, 75, 80, 100 amp. I got a 200 amp power supply. I've got laboratory power supply. I got all these big, huge power supplies. Got them coming out my ears. But in a lot of cases, I need just a simple 12-volt source. Doesn't really need to be that clean, but I would prefer a linear power supply. I don't want a switch mode power supply, especially a cheap one, because cheap ones tend to induce a lot of noise because they operate at extremely high frequencies. I can give you a good example. Let me reach around here. This is, stuff like this even. I've used these before, and I'm trying to phase all these things out. They work fine. They're cheap. They're made in China, but it's a switch mode power. It's very light. Doesn't weigh much. So they're basically doing it with circuitry to get the voltage, where in a linear power supply like this is, it has a transformer, a step-down transformer. Now, I saw one of these on eBay, and that's actually where this one came from. It was $20 delivered, or $20 with free shipping. Now I get the box, and on the end of it, there's an MCM label. So MCM Electronics, very familiar with them, been buying stuff for them for years. So I punched in this part number, 28-2200. Went to the MCM website and punched that in, and there's $17.99, or $18 on MCM's website, but you'd have to pay shipping. So $20 delivered, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to get one to try it out first. Now, this is actually a variable power supply. So you can see it has positions for 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, and 12 volts. The only thing I'm really concerned about is 12 volts, but actually the 9 volt would come in handy in a few cases, because I do have a few accessories. Occasionally they call for 9 volts. So that's great. I don't need to change anything. Just a flip of a knob. But so what kind of quality are we going to get? I'm not going to say I was pleasantly surprised, but I'm also not going to say I was disappointed. Now, I did not know if this was a switch mode power supply or if this was a linear power supply like I wanted. The picture on eBay, I could just barely see, it kind of looked like the way in the one picture they had a picture of the underside. I was like, damn, that looks like a transformer core in the picture. So, what the hell, we'll just go ahead and buy it. I cracked it apart. Yes, it is a linear power supply. So, good. That gets rid of that horrible noise problem. You work on radios and whatnot. Switch mode power supplies can lead to horrendous problems with inducing noise into your receiver and your transmit as well. So, does it actually work? Well, it's turned on. See the little red light down there is on, and I have it hooked up through a set of test leads here to a meter. So, in the 12 volt position, it's putting out 12.034 volts. So, I gotta say, that's pretty blasted close to 12 volts. I mean, you don't get much closer than that. It's within 3/100ths of a volt. So let me flip to the 9 volt position. I'll just give it just a split second to stabilize, because I'm sure the cap in there has to discharge a little bit. So 9 volts, it's doing 9.022, and the 7.5, it's doing 7. Fluttering around there a little bit. There we go. Like I say, let's stabilize. 7.55, 6 volt. 6.034, somewhere around there. 4.5 volt position, it's doing 4.55. And 3 volt, it's doing, within 0.003 of a volt. 3.003 volts, so that's really friggin' close. So, like I say, the only position I'm really concerned about is 12 volt, and I'm perfectly happy with 12.06 something volts. That's well within, the realm of acceptability. And the 9 volt position, that's perfectly fine. Hell, I'd be happy if it was at 9.5 and maybe this one was at 12.5, but hell, 9.0 anything is great. So what's the build quality like? Because just because it works doesn't mean it's not a piece of junk. So let me get it unplugged. Just turn it on. I turned it back on. Just wait for the cap to discharge inside. Okay. And now we'll get this little critter cracked open. So get my spade terminals off here. And already have the screws out of the cabinet. Actually, I have 3 of the screws out, and the other one's kind of stuck in the bottom cover. It's still in there. But, so, as we can see, it is clearly a linear power supply. Got a transformer with a fairly good size core. Now, this is rated for 2,000 milliamps, or that would be 2 amps. That's the one thing I'm going to say, yeah, I don't think you'd want to use this at 2 amps. The reason I say that, what they're doing for actual power regulation, which is perfectly fine. I've made little small power supplies basically just like this before. You buy a transformer, bridge rectifier, handful of components, and a LM37 or 317, which is exactly what's in here. I don't know if I'd even be able to get that to focus on that writing on that right there, but that's what that is. It's just an LM317, which is a variable voltage regulator, but it's a 1.5 amp. So yeah, I'd probably personally rate it. It'd probably run fine at 2 amps, but you're kind of pushing the limit. So yeah, 1.5 amps. But the majority of stuff I'm running, it's usually a few hundred milliamps. Like I say, radio accessories, microphone switchers, DSP filters, you know, that type of stuff. So, or better yet, what I specifically wanted this one for was my bench light. Or at least one of my bench lights. It's a converted light. I've just got a shitload of LED, 1157 LED replacement bulbs in there. And I currently run it off of a bench, you know, a laboratory variable power supply. Well, this would be great. I can step from 12 to 9 to 7.5 because those things will still work, but that reduce, you know, every time I step the voltage down, they get dimmer. And sometimes when I'm filming stuff, I need a little bit of additional light. It's nice to be able to turn the voltage down. This will handle that. So build quality, yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world. You know, covers, it's not flimsy plastic. It's actually fairly rigid, so, you know, not bad. Got a decent heat sink, you know. They didn't just slap that on the back cover and call it a day. They actually went through, you know, there's actually 3 layers here. There's 1, 2, and then the back panel. So actually looks like it has suitable heat sink. It is fused. You can see probably the cheapest electrolytic capacitors on the planet. That's probably one thing I'm going to do. I'll just go ahead change out those caps. I'll put in good Nichicon caps, and I'll increase the value of that one right there. But, yeah, there's not much to it, and it's got a wiper switch. Now, that's one thing I'm going to do. I will apply some deoxit shield, because you can see how that switch works, the wiper fingers. So they just have the circuit board traces there, you can see, and then that selects which resistor is actually controlling this regulator there. So like I say, I'll apply a little bit of deoxit shield to that to prevent, not so much prevent oxidation, but I want to use that as lubrication to try and extend the life of those traces, you know, as long as possible. So was it worth 20 bucks? I think so. I think that's not a bad price for a new out-of-the-box power supply. If anything in this thing goes bad short of the transformer, I've got it in stock. I've got probably 150 of the LM317s. I've got dozens of this size bridge rectifier, you know, and the caps and resistors got more of them than I could even begin to count. So, you know, it'd be simple to repair. It's a very simple circuit. So, like I say, not bad. It does have a poly cap there. So, yeah, it looks like it's got the standard layout for a 317 regulator. So, I'm going to say it's actually not a bad buy. So, you know, for $17.99, if you buy it from MCM, plus whatever the shipping would be, or you get it on eBay for $20 with free shipping, I think that's not bad. That'll work fine. Like I say, I'm going to use this one probably for my bench light, and a new, well, not new, it's used, but new to me. Up here is a multi-switcher microphone switcher. So I've got my little audio box I had built here, but now with this, there's actually a plug in the back of that. That comes down to this cord down here. And then it also goes down to another radio. I've got the, in this position here is actually the output of this audio box comes into this. I plug in a microphone here, plug in another microphone here. But, you know, this operates off 12 volts. So I'll probably have this and the light powered off of this little power supply down here. And like I say, I think for the money, it's actually a decent price. You know, I didn't need, and that was the other thing. I wanted something small. Size is precious here at the bench. You know, every time I get another piece of test equipment, I got to rearrange or get rid of a piece of test equipment to add another one or something. And, you know, it's always getting more crammed and more crammed. This little guy right here, it's really small. I can stick this, you know, find a little nook. Actually, it might even fit underneath my Stablock 4040 under there. I don't know. Yeah, it'd be damn close. But you know, it'd be perfectly fine just to set it right here. Now, one thing I will probably do, because I'm not really going to want, if I stick it down there, I'm not going to want these jacks sticking out the front that I then have to, you know, attach wires to. What I will probably do, because I've got enough real estate, I'll just punch a hole in the back here, install a, you know, cord strain relief, and run a pair of wires out the back. Probably be, because like I said, it's going to be pretty much a, you know, a semi-permanent installation for what it's going to be used for. The two things it's going to be hooked up to, it's pretty much just going to stay hooked up to them. But I think I'll get maybe another 2 or 3 of these. Because like I say, I've got all kinds of stuff that I run off. I really don't need to be using these gigantic 20, 30, 50, 80, 100, 200 amp power supplies when I'm running something that only runs off of maybe 100 or 200 or, you know, maybe a half milliamps or maybe a half an amp or something like that. This little guy here will handle it. Like I say, for the price, couldn't be beat. Made in China, construction, like I say, not that bad. You know, it's not the best, but I have seen a lot worse. And the big one for me, it's not a switching power supply. Yeah, that heat shrink tubing, I gotta get that put back over that a little bit better, because that's over the 120 volt line. That should be on there really good. Wasn't heat shrunk very well. So, I mean, it's not like it can short out against anything because the covers are plastic, but safety first. Everything like that should be completely covered. But, yep, I think that wasn't a bad price. So there you go. There's just my quick review of the 6-way multi-voltage 2-amp regulated power supply. Like I say, you know, whoever MW is, I have absolutely no idea. But, like I say, MCM sells them. I didn't know this was an actual MCM one. Like I say, they didn't say that in the listing. They just listed it as an MW. You know, I saw that sticker and then looked it up, and hey, I think it'd be fine. So there you go.